I see there are still some people coming in, but let's start the webinar now. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the webinar on the results of the Sarantaporos Science Week 2024, shedding light on our last unexplored river sections. My name is Manu Habe, and I'm currently coordinating the Scientists for Balkan Rivers network. And I'm happy to accompany you through the webinar today, and would like to encourage you to use our question and answer sections if you have special questions to our panelists. So, as I could already experience for myself, the Science Week in itself represents the benefits of a joint scientific effort in its best way, bringing together nature lovers, scientists, local NGOs, local community members, artists, and journalists. And besides a way to gather precious scientific data, it's also an efficient tool to raise awareness and unite and empower local NGOs. And so with this, it's my great pleasure to welcome Irilena Linardaki today. She's here as representative of MedINA, who did organize the Science Week at the Sarantaporos in 2024, and she will lead you through the upcoming presentations. So Irilena, it's your turn, please.
Thank you, Manu. Let me share my screen. Can you see now?
Yes, it works.
Perfect. So thank you again, Manu, for the introduction. Great having you here all. My name is Irilena, and I work with MedINA. They organized the Sarantaporos Science Week together with all these organizations whose logos can see. It was an initiative that needed the support of many different people, organizations, and it was an incredible collaborative hands-on event that happened for the first time in Greece. So let's start from where the Sarantaporos is for the people who have not been there. The Sarantaporos River is in Epirus region, and it's right there. This is the Sarantaporos Basin in blue, its borders, its limits, and it's stretching for 50 kilometers, covering an area of 870 square kilometers. So if it was an island, it would rank as the fourth biggest island in Greece, which makes it a big area. The last 10 kilometers from the river form a natural border between the Albanian and the Greek sides. It's particularly important because it's a main tributary of the Aos-Viosa River, a transboundary river that is shared between Greece and Albania, and has also been characterized as one of the last and longest and last free-flowing rivers in Europe. So at the same time, the Sarantaporos catchment is one of the most remote regions of the Aos-Viosa catchment, and it has a very difficult accessibility, thus making it extremely understudied up until the summer of 2024. It originates between the heart of the mountains of Gramos and Voio, and the river streams that fall from the Gramos and Voio have to face very mountainous reliefs and diverse landscapes, also including canyons, until they unite all together, ending up to the main Sarantaporos stretch, which is a braided system. And as it's seen here, it creates the main course of the river. For Sarantaporos River, until recently, there was no protection status from its springs until its confluence with the Aos River Right upon the Greek and Albanian borders, Sarantaporos had completely no protection status. However, this was also specifically the fact that it had no protection status made it very vulnerable to the threats in the wider area, including over 50 small hydropower plants that were planned in the Aos basin, and specifically half of them within the Sarantaporos River. So these hydros were under different licensing stages, as shown in the different colors here in the map, threatened the free flow of the Sarantaporos, as well as the Aos-Vjosa transboundary river. After many years of efforts of the Blue Heart campaign, however, in 2023, the Sarantaporos River was established as a protected area, which before it wasn't. So now it is a protected landscape and protected natural formation. And most importantly, the new protection status is the first status among all this mosaic of the different protection status that you see, because it's surrounded by Nature 2000 areas, as well as the Northern Pintos National Park. However, this newly designated area recognizes the free flow of the river and the river itself as a protected unity. However, despite the fact that in 2023 there was an establishment of a new protected area in Sarantaporos, there was still the threat of small hydropower plants, because up until 1 week before the Sarantaporos Science Week, there was no specific regulations and that would stop the small hydropower plants from proceeding in the area. Therefore, there was a need for a Science Week. There was a need for an initiative in order to collect data in this much understudied river stretch of the Aos-Vjosa basin. And there was also a need for the river to become in the spotlight of the Greek and the international community, and the free flow of the river to be protected. Therefore, the Sarantaporos Science Week was organized. And given the fact that just 1 week before the Science Week, the presidential decree was issued that for the newly designated area, that thus prohibited the installation of the small hydropower plants, during organizing of the Sarantaporos Science Week, there were decided sampling locations that were based on the existence of the small hydropower plant along the Sarantaporos basin. So these are the small hydropower plants, and these are the sampling locations for the Sarantaporos Science Week. So the sampling locations were prioritized in order to build a data reservoir that would enable us to develop data-driven proposal against all these hydropower plants. But at the same time, there appears to be a pretty homogeneous distribution of the sampling points. Here you can see the separations of the Sarantaporos basin, and it is shown that there is a very good resolution in terms of the methodological approach for data collection through the Sarantaporos Science Week. So, the Sarantaporos Science Week started in the 28th of June and lasted for a week. And the home base was the village of Vourpiani in Mastorochoria village complex, where people from Greece, scientists from the Balkans, scientists from Europe and from the US came for a week. They camped there, and they also gathered data along the Sarantaporos basin. We also gathered in the square of the village to discuss, dine, and connect as well. And overall, more than 60 volunteer scientists from 11 different countries joined this initiative from 13 different taxonomic groups, also including abiotic and periphyton groups and social scientists. Different journalists from 4 different countries also joined the Sarantaporos Science Week, as well as writers and artists who joined to capture and communicate the river's story. So let's dive into the discoveries. There were 302 plant taxa identified from the Sarantaporos Science Week. And did we find any rare taxa? Well, actually we did. And if there is one that deserves a special mention, this is it, Scorsonella lafracisiana, the species name. It's a species that was very recently discovered in 2019, and it was also identified during the Sarantaporos Science Week. And it's a very important species because it's a narrow range endemic, found only in specific sites in the Austria River. And what makes it very interesting is that it thrives in the sand islands of the river, so it's a riparian specialist. In addition, there was a big group of vertebrate researchers who studied mammals and birds as well. There were people who came, scientists who came to study the megafauna, and they found charismatic megafauna, including the Balkan chamois, the brown bear, the gray wolf. There were also 3 species of dormice detected in the area. Here is Manu in the middle, measuring the footprints of a brown bear. More than 18 species of Chiroptera bat species were also identified in the area, along other species of small rodents, as well as 61 species of birds. Apart from the mammal and bird scientists, there were also different groups of scientists who came to study the invertebrate fauna of Sarantaporos region. And there were more than 422 invertebrate species and taxa identified during just 7 days of the Science Week, with the most notable representation being the moth species with 153 species, also Orthoptera species, which are the grasshoppers and bush crickets, butterfly species, and many more. Some of them will be touched by Anastasia, so I won't get into too much detail. And there were also different teams that did not study biotic factors, but they did study the water chemical composition, the river ecosystem functioning, geological conditions, in order to see ultimately to understand the Sarantaporos River health. So what now? After months of the Sarantaporos Science Week, what is happening? What is the data used for? Just a few months after the Sarantaporos Science Week was finished, actually, there was a need for the data to be used because there was a new small hydropower plant in the region of Sarantaporos, that was just 500 meters from the newly designated area. And thanks to the data that was gathered through the Science Week, MedINA, together with other civil society organizations, were able to inform scientifically grounded objections to this proposed hydropower plant in the region. In addition, it should also be mentioned that 17 different cultural associations, unions, and brotherhoods of the wider region of Konitsa formed together and submitted objections demonstrating the unity and mobilization of the local community. So this is a paradigm shift for how the community was acting so far to protect the natural environment and the rivers against hydropower plants. In addition, we know that the local community became more familiar with MedINA's work, with the fact that there was a science week. There were different scientists all over the river stretches because they could see them for a week, and they understood that it is important for the river to be protected because it was on the spotlight for 1 week, as well as there was a social media campaign that was running at the same time with more than 100 posts and a lot of outreach that had a very positive outreach, both locally, nationally, and internationally. And last but not least, we are now preparing the Sarantaporos Science Week report that will be ready, we're hoping, for May. So it has gathered all the reports from all the scientists that came to the Sarantaporos Science Week, and we are looking forward to share it with you. So that's from me. I want to thank you on behalf of MedINA and the Sarantaporos Science Week. Thank you for the contribution, and I think now it's the time for the rest of the speakers to have their say. So I will stop sharing my screen. I would like to introduce Dr. Nikos Skoulikidis, who is a distinguished geologist and biochemist. He's currently serving as a research director in the inland waters at the Institute of Marine Biological Resources and Inland Waters, part of the HCMR in Greece. He has coordinated numerous national and international articles and research projects, and he has extensive publication record of over 100 peer-reviewed research articles. He's also featured among the world's career-long top 2% scientists in the Stanford list. So, Nikos, we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you for the introduction, Irilena. So, when you visit the Sarantaporos Basin, you get the impression that it is an untouched basin. But in order to realize in terms of science, if the basin is really untouched and pristine, I will present you the following presentation. Okay, you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Good.
Perfect.
So the question is the Sarantaporos River a pristine ecosystem? Now I will present you our main findings regarding water quality. Major ion levels are controlled by lithology and morphology. Although ultramafic rocks, ophiolites, are infrequently found in the basin, they control magnesium, silicate, hydrogen, carbonate, and pH levels throughout the basin. As you can see, here is the basin and the geological formations. In green, you have the ophiolites, the ultramafic rocks. Limestone in blue. The yellow area is flysch, and the white areas are recent clastic sediments. So, weathering of ophiolite and clastic sediments and partly flysch provide magnesium, hydrogen carbonate, silicate, and high pH levels. On the contrary, here is okay. Flysch weathering provides potassium, sulfate, and in a lesser extent, sodium, calcium, and electrical conductivity. The main chemical type in the area is calcium hydrogen carbonate waters, while in some areas where ophiolites prevail, we have magnesium carbonate waters. Opa. The Cavacilla hydrogen sulfide hot spring supports fish population despite low DO levels, dissolved oxygen levels, likely due to the antibiotic properties of sulfide that inhibit harmful pathogens. Rainfall is highly enriched with nutrients relatively to the river, especially in orthophosphate and ammonium, with almost 50 times higher levels than in the river. In-stream biological activity is limited, with photosynthesis primarily constrained by phosphorus. In highland sub-basins, characterized by bare areas and sparse vegetation, nutrient levels are elevated due to the limited capacity of soils and vegetation to buffer atmospheric nutrient inputs. The presence of bare areas in headwaters may enhance mineralization and nitrification, further contributing to the observed elevated nutrient concentrations. Conversely, self-purification processes in forested areas buffer nutrient inputs and mitigate atmospheric and upstream nutrient contributions. You can see here bare areas at the highlands and forested areas at the uplands. Okay. Now, these diagrams present the distribution of forest areas, low vegetation, open areas, agriculture, artificial areas, and population density in three different altitudinal zones. The highland zone here with blue, the upland zone with green, and the lowland zone with orange. As we can see, forest areas are at the minimum in the highland zone, in contrast to areas with low vegetation and open areas that are maximum in the highland zone. Also in the lowland zone, agriculture and artificial areas and population density are higher than in the other zones. The result is that in the highland zones, we have, in blue, we have maximum ammonium, total dissolved nitrogen, orthophosphate, total dissolved phosphorus, and organic phosphorus, maximum concentrations. And in the lowland zone, we have maximum nitrate concentration. If we see the distribution of nutrients according to a nutrient pollution metric that integrates all nutrients together, if we see the distribution from the sources to the confluence with the Aos River, we cannot see a particular trend along the river course. The blue colors are the main stem of the Sarantaporos, and the green colors represent the tributaries. So you can see how elevated concentration of this metric we see at the confluence of Sarantaporos with Aos, since Aos, although a very clear river, has higher nutrient concentrations. Now, if we compare the nutrient concentrations in Sarantaporos River with green with the rain event that we captured during our field campaign, with the mean of the average concentrations in Greek rivers, and with the boundary of high good status of water quality index that we apply for the purposes of the Water Framework Directive, we can see, and also with Krathis River with orange. Why Krathis River? Krathis River was considered to be the most unpolluted river in Greece. So that what can we see now is that most of the nutrients studied in Sarantaporos have lower concentrations even compared to the Krathis River. Most nutrients species have lower concentrations even compared to the Krathis River. So now, up to date, the Sarantaporos is recognized as the least disturbed river in Greece. We did a Google Scholar search, and that indicated a notable scarcity of literature on definitions for pristine conditions within lotic ecosystems, while the term pristine was often applied indiscriminately. Drawing for our experience in establishing nutrient reference conditions for Greek rivers, our study applied a combination of existing thresholds for anthropogenically influenced sections of the Sarantaporos and proposed new thresholds for undisturbed headwater streams. Now, this is the graph showing our procedure. We have to concentrate on, this is the Hellenic Water Quality Index that is used for the purposes of the Water Framework Directive. Then we can see here, we establish initial pressure criteria for agricultural land uses, etc. Then we establish final pressure criteria for pristine conditions. Also, we established nutrient threshold criteria for the whole basin and nutrient threshold criteria for pristine headwaters. What we found is that all sampling sites were classified as a reference. They received the maximum score of this index. Next, 15 out of the total of 37 sites examined satisfied the initial pressure criteria. 9 of these 15 sites satisfied the initial pressure criteria and the nutrient thresholds. So they were classified as pristine. Then the remaining 6 out of the 15 sites are located in intact subbasins on the highland areas. So they are termed pristine, and related nutrients thresholds were established. Now, 22 out of 37 sites did not satisfy the initial pressure criteria. And we applied more loose pressure criteria, for 10 out of these 22 sites that satisfied initial pressure criteria also satisfied the nutrient thresholds established. So, by establishing new pressure criteria, more loose but realistic, 4 out of the 22 sites were classified as pristine. So, the result, next, the final pressure criteria delineated for pristine sites are particularly stricken when compared to other criteria carried out from other scientists for pristine areas. Now, I will not read this, but it is a comparison between our criteria with the criteria of other scientists. the established initial threshold criteria are realistic and representative for Mediterranean conditions. You can see here the with this green color, the pressure criteria for the whole basin. With the dark green, the pressure criteria, the threshold nutrient threshold criteria for the headwaters, compared to different criteria carried out by other scientists. We used more or less the criteria of Maybeck and Helmer, and for orthophosphate we used a lower concentration than the criteria of Maybeck and Helmer. Note that a number of thresholds carried out by other scientists were based on modeling because of lack of pristine sites and were atmospherically corrected, so some values are particularly low. Headwaters reveal absence of any direct human pressures and are exclusively affected by atmospheric inputs. Thus, the established threshold criteria for headwaters are realistic, since, in light of the historical environmental developments, climate change, and the long-range transfer of airborne pollutants, it is essential to consider pristine streams as dynamic systems that preserve their natural forms, functions, and processes and biodiversity to the greatest extent possible, shaped by the coevolution of human society and its environment, and reflecting the delicate balance that exists within our globally degraded planet. So the result is that 62% of the Sarantaporos River basin can be classified as pristine. And this is the figure with the green color are the pristine areas of Sarantaporos. Thanks a lot for your attendance. Shall I stop sharing?
Yes, Nico, thank you very much. Great findings.
Thank you.
Indeed, the most pristine river in Greece. That's a great outcome of a research, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So if you have any questions, you can leave them on the chat, and we can now continue to our next speaker, who is Dr. Leonidas Vardakas. He's a freshwater physicologist for over 19 years of experience in aquatic ecology and biodiversity conservation. Since 2006, he has served as a research associate at the Hellenic Center for Marine Research, and he specializes in fish habitat assessments, conservation planning, and invasive species risk analysis, with deep expertise in Mediterranean freshwater ecosystems. He has contributed to more than 20 national and international research projects and published over 60 peer-reviewed scientific papers. He was in the Sarantaporos Science Week sampling for fish species in the Sarantaporos River. So, Leonida, we're all ears about your findings.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Irilena, for the intro. And thanks everyone who's joined us today for this webinar. Can you see my presentation? Is everything okay?
Yeah, all fine.
Okay. During the Science Week, me and my team had an easy task to wait a second, to search the fish, the fish found in the Sarantaporos River basin. So our main objective was to explore how fish diversity is organized across the Sarantaporos River, perhaps the most undisturbed river in Greece, as Nikos pointed out earlier. Surprisingly, despite its ecological value, Sarantaporos River hasn't gotten the research love it deserves, at least until the Science Week. we were pretty curious about which species are in the river, how the fish are distributed, what assemblage they create, or how the local environment shapes their distribution. So we decided to jump in and map out this information. I think this kind of info will be valuable if we are going to come up with some conservation strategies, especially now that human pressures are starting to increase due to the prospect of the development of hydroelectric plants. We had the same sampling network as everyone else who participated in the Science Week. However, thanks to our heavy-duty equipment, we couldn't visit the entire sampling network. That's why we visited 25 sites. We sampled 21, since 4 of the sites were dry. At each site, we used 2 types of electrofishing devices, a backpack electrofisher for shallow and small-sized stream sections, mainly in the tributaries, and a generator-powered electrofisher for larger and deeper sections of the main part of Sarantaporos. We also used the protocol that we have developed in HCMR to record environmental, physicochemical, and habitat data. Let's jump to the results. So we recorded a total of 9 native fish species, all endemic to the Southern Balkans, with the exception of the European eel, which is considered a cosmopolitan species. In these photos, you can see the 8 of the 9 species that we caught during our survey. Unfortunately, we forgot to take a picture of the scattered chub. Out of these species, 3 are assigned as threatened based on the IUCN Red List, the European eel, which is critically endangered, while the Pindus stone loads, the Prespa sperling, are vulnerable. And recently, the West Balkan trout was assigned as near threatened, while the rest are doing okay so far. Now, in these figures, you can see the spatial distribution of the fish species within our study area. The 3 most widespread were the Prespa barbel, the Prespa sperling, and the Pindus stone loads. The European eel, on the other hand, was found at only 5 locations. However, as you can see, it reached the upper part of Sarantaporos, so that's very important. Similarly, the West Balkan trout indicated a limited distribution and low densities, with the exception of one population found in Amaranthus stream, despite the availability of suitable habitats in other tributaries. And the most rare species was the ochrid spiny loach that was spotted only in 1 location at the Kavasila sulfate springs, where conditions were extreme there, indicating low dissolved oxygen and sky-high salinity. Now, this figure shows fish densities and species composition at each site. As you can see, fish assemblages were mostly dominated by Prespa sperling with blue, or Prespa barbel with the green color, while all other species contributed less in all locations. We also spotted high densities at the Kavasila sulfate springs in the lower basin, which is pretty fascinating, having in mind the extreme conditions there. So looking ahead, one of the most pressing threats for the fish species of Sarantaporos is the development of small hydroelectric plants. These projects for sure will fragment large sections of the river and impact migratory species like the European eel or the trout and barbels. In this figure, you can see our sampling sites with blue dots. Now look, if we add the potential future hydroelectric plants with red dots, how dense is this? And also, adding to this pressure, the bodies recorded by MedINA during the MapStream project will further disturb the viability of most fish species found in Sarantaporos. Now, for future research, we could focus on several topics in the Sarantaporos River. The Kavasila sulfate springs was a big puzzle for us. These springs are a unique habitat in Sarantaporos, displaying extremely harsh conditions for fish. And despite these conditions, 3 species were recorded and were observed there thriving in this environment. So we would like to conduct further research here at this location to see the mechanisms why they are resilient and adaptive to these conditions. Also, as for immediate conservation actions, we think that the relative low presence and densities of the West Balkan trout needs to be urgently addressed. That's why we propose to monitor the Amarados population, which is the only healthy population of trout in the Sarantaporos Basin. And also it will be interesting if we can explore some other potential sites where the species could be translocated. We found 2 of them. So yeah. And finally, I will want to give special thanks to my teammates, Alex and Athens, for their incredible support during our field samplings. I know I pushed them hard, but they held like true troopers. And also big thanks to Nikos Skoulikidis for convincing me to come to join Science Week. I said no 3 times, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, and I'm glad that he insisted. And also, I would like to thank Dimitris, Fanikos, Konstantina, Irini, Alexis, and the entire MedINA team for coordinating and supporting us in every possible way during the Science Week. Truly an excellent team. And last but not least, I would like to thank Eco Albania for covering the travel costs. That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Leonidas, for your insights. A very important finding for the fish fauna of Sarantaporos, as well as the fact that they're directly threatened by the small hydropower plants under different licensing stages in the region. So now I would like to introduce Anastasia Lampou. She is environmental scientist working at the Institute of Marine Biological Resources and Inland Waters as well. She is doing a PhD in ecology at the University of Barcelona. Her research focuses on microecology and biogeography with a particular interest in the functional diversity and conservation of freshwater insect taxa. In addition to her academic work, she serves as an assessor in the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, contributing to the global evaluation of species conservation status. She's passionate about bridging science and conservation policy. Anastasia, whenever you're ready.
Hello to everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this webinar and have the opportunity to discuss the results of all of us, and also to have the opportunity to discuss our next steps. I don't know, can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, fine.
Okay, thank you. Today I will briefly present the preliminary results of a biodiversity study conducted in the Sarantaporos River. Sarantaporos River is one of the most untouched and ecologically valuable freshwater ecosystems in Greece. Our study focuses on aquatic macrovertebrates, Trichoptera, Plecoptera, Odonata, and Ephemeroptera, which are incredible useful indicators of ecosystem health. Several species in the region are expected to be rare or threatened, making this area a biodiversity and conservation hotspot. Okay. During our field work, we sampled aquatic macrovertebrates across 18 diverse sites, ranging from cold mountain streams to dynamic floodplains and waterfalls. Despite our short sampling period, only 7 days, we recorded a remarkable diversity. Specifically, 44 caddisfly species, 10 stonefly species, 6 dragonflies and damselflies, and finally 16 mayfly species. Notable is that we found species like Stactobia maclachlani, Cortulegaster bidentata and Ecnionorus grecus, which are assessment as threatened species based on IUCN criteria. Also very important is that we found some rare species like Epeorus yugoslavicus. This species highlights the conservation value of this river. Also, in this point, I must say that some species remain unidentified, indicate the need of molecular analysis in order to explore if these species are new species, I mean, maybe endemic for this river. So, these findings underscore the Sarantaporos River's exceptional ecological status. And also, we see that it is not only rich in biodiversity, but also vulnerable to any future alterations. So, we call for urgent protection of this unique freshwater ecosystem in order not to have a loss of, not to lose some of these very important and unique species. I would like to thank MedINA and all the organizations that organized this. I mean, the Sarantaporos Science Week. Also, many thanks to my team there, because I was not alone, of course. Thea, Emil, and Pietro. Thank you, all of you. And I am very happy to be part of this presentation webinar, and I'm ready to answer your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Now we will move to Professor Gabriel. He's a professor of aquatic biochemistry and a leader of a fluvial ecosystem ecology group at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. He's also a long-standing and active member of the ScientistforBalkanRivers network, with involvement dating back to around 2020. He's the organizer of 2 Neretva Science Weeks, and his connection to these rivers, the ones of Greece and Albania, runs deep, quite literally, as he first paddled the waters of Iosa and Voidomatis in a kayak nearly 20 years ago. His work and passion continue to inspire and guide many within the community of the Science Weeks. So over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Irilena, for introducing me. I will change the topic now a little bit, because I had full trust in my colleagues that they can actually talk a little bit about the science that we managed to do on the Sarantaporos Science Week. And I will instead dive into a different topic. As Irilena said, this has not been the first Science Week I participated in. And I'm getting, not worried, but let's say I start thinking a little bit about how and why scientists are doing this, and how this momentum that scientists bring to an environmental campaign, for example, here to save the Sarantaporos, can be maintained. And this is also what's reflected in the title of my talk. I'm actually thinking what I want to do is kind of like encourage students as well as researchers, so professionals, academic professionals, to get engaged by putting those science weeks on their academic agenda, right? So this is not about making holidays. This is about fulfilling the requirements of your job. And the science weeks, in fact, are a really good opportunity to do this. And I think in order to do this, what we have to do is think about scenarios that actually benefit a lot of people. They benefit students, they benefit professionals in academic teaching and research, but they also benefit conservation and help the NGOs actually do the work properly. So I was asked to start with this famous triangle now. I have presented this a couple of times already. And the background here, in fact, is not from the Vjosa catchment. It's not from Sarantaporos. The background here is from the Neretva River in Bosnia, which has been the location of 2 science weeks earlier to the one we talked about today. And I'd just like to use this confluence. The picture was made by Josh Lim to illustrate what I think the science week should be about. They should be about basically science, and bringing scientists into a position where they actually actively advocate and also have an opportunity to network with other professionals, but also with people that actually work in NGOs, for instance. So when you think about the reality of being an academic ecologist nowadays, on the one hand, you have academic life constraints, right? And those academic life constraints are pretty standardized across the disciplines. No, it's all about certificates. It's about thesis. It's about writing publications. It's about giving courses and doing courses and participating in courses. These constraints are more or less the same, whether you're a student or whether you are a professor like me. The older you get, the more you get worried about press, maybe, and the more you get worried about maintaining a network and so on. No, you can play this as a game of Monopoly, I'd like to say, where the currency is called impact factor, right? So it's all about creating good publications. Now, on the other hand, we're also ecologists, right? And as ecologists that actually also embrace nature, we like to study systems that my colleague has today called pristine systems, right? Here's a picture of them in the upper left, upper right, I'm sorry. What we get, however, is the ecology that's kind of like spreading around the planet in the Anthropocene. You get dams built everywhere. You get the systems you want to understand and study destroyed before your eyes, right? That's also a monopoly game, but it's a monopoly game where the currency is really well known. It's just dollars or euros, right? So I call this observation position that we can then take as scientists. I call this playing monopoly games, and it's building despair, right? And I think here the Science Weeks actually offer something else, because they offer you an opportunity to actually advocate, no, to fight against those dams, but in a scientific way, right? You're not going to chain yourself to a caterpillar. Instead, you're using the instruments and tools that you have learned to use in your scientific career, right? And this is shown in the lower part, where I call this the loop of motivation, where basically getting engaged and making scientific and acting as a scientific advocate. On the one hand, it maintains scientific advocacy and engagement, while on the other hand, it can also secure your academic survival, because you're basically fulfilling your certificates, you're getting your thesis, you're getting your publications done. And this is what I would like to really convey today. And it doesn't matter whether you're a student, because then you go to your professor and say, hey, this is what I want to do and learn. And if you're a professor, well, here's an opportunity to actually get it done as part of your work. And the recipe that I followed in the course of the Sarantaporos Science Week was basically to run a course. And I think you can basically tick all the requirements if you're academic life of doing this. So for me, the Sarantaporos Science Week was a course that you could just look up in the course schedule of the University of Innsbruck. And it was called an interdisciplinary excursion, and a lot of funny names. You could earn 7.5 ECTS for this, right? So for students, it was a course where they earn certificates. For me, it was an opportunity to actually give an attractive course and hopefully do much more. The course itself basically started off with a phase 1, where we literally did what we normally do when we bring students out on an excursion. We called it Becoming Vjosa. It was a lot about learning how rivers work. It was about exploring the river. It was about experiencing the river also on foot and by raft, right? So this is a lot about experiencing the landscape. In the phase 2, then, we contributed to the Sarantaporos Science Week, and this was all about becoming a researcher, and hopefully an engaged researcher. The phase 1 largely looked like this, right? So it's really experiencing the landscape for a period of about 10 to 11 days, starting to hike small headwaters, getting in contact with the river, then rafting for 4 days. That's what ecologists should learn, in my opinion. Phase 2 was about research. And here what we tried to do was literally getting the most out of a lot of workforce, because if you bring 17 students and 4 seniors, you get a lot of manpower for 5 days. That's a lot of working hours, right? And I don't want you to actually read through all of this. Basically, the red box that kind of like gives you the key aspects of this. We started basically with 4 topical teams that prepared extremely simple protocols. Then we reassembled those people into research teams in the field to actually collect data. And this data collection actually is extremely fast, efficient, and works with standardized protocols and allows us to cover almost 70 sampling sites in 5 days. And at the end of the Science Week, we again reassemble teams to topical teams that actually then report results, right? And you can see the titles 1, 2, 3, 4 in the upper corner. Those are the titles of our preliminary reports that I have heard today will be available in May. And the story is not ending there, because there were also 3 students that will hopefully prepare this, or not hopefully, they are preparing this to become their master thesis, basically. Eventually that's going to be published. Then we really tick all the requirements of academic life today. If not, then at least they can finish their master thesis with this. And you can see the titles of those theses, and they kind of like sound fancy maybe, in the lower right corner. I think with this, I hope that I have given you a little bit of an idea how a Science Week can actually be embedded in an academic agenda nowadays. And it's what I will try to follow up in the future. If you're a student, then maybe you want to motivate your professors to join Science Weeks in this layout as a course, right? Or because you want to do your master's. And if you're a professional, then maybe consider swapping some of your lectures and courses and trying to get this into your course program, because I think it's really a rewarding way of doing my work. And thank you very much for your attention now.
So thank you, Gabriel. Thank you all for the insights through your talks. Thank you, Irilena, for moderating this section so well. I'm already looking forward to the questions, but I'm for now happy to welcome Ulrich to give us the latest news on the Save the Blue Heart campaign.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Manu. And thank you for all the presenters. I found it really astonishing, and I'm really happy to see these results. And it gives me another confidence that we are on the right track. We need people like you in this situation where we're fighting for the survival of the rivers. And the Science Week as a system has been proven with the Sarantaporos again, seems for me a good tool to do so. And I'm pretty confident that with this information, we will be in the position to not only save the Sarantaporos, but the Aros Basin as a whole, hopefully. And that's the vision, to connect it with the Vjosa Wild River National Park to create, from my knowledge, the only complete river system, or almost complete river system, to become a national park. So congrats for everyone. I'm really happy to see that. Yeah, the update on the Blue Heart, very, very briefly, only from the scientific perspective, I put it in the chat. We have published the recent Balkan Rivers Dam update. So as you probably know, every second year we are assessing almost all the Balkans and check the dam situation. So how many are under construction, how many are operating, and how many are still in the pipeline. So the situation hasn't changed dramatically. There's still over 3,000 dams being planned. There was a little over 92 under construction last autumn, I must say, when the assessment started, and about 1,800 are operating. Each of them is too much, but still it's the density of dams is comparably low. Just information, Germany has 8,000 operating hydropower plants. Austria, as probably the most dense hydropower country in the world, has about 5,400. Nevertheless, every dam, as I said, is too much, and the dam-freaking countries stay pretty much the same. It's Albania in the first place, Bosnia and Serbia not much behind. Albania is pretty devastating to me, because we managed and celebrated the Vjosa so much, because we also stopped a lot of dams. It became a national park, but it seems that in the light of the Vjosa National Park, the government continued to give concessions to permit dams elsewhere in the country. So a lot of the Skumbini, Semani river basin, Mati river basins are basically slaughtered. And we need to develop tools also in the Blue Heart campaign to get more broad in here, to not forget that while we are focusing, that there are other things happening. You know, not only to say the bad things, but we have also in the last, we did this assessment also, 12 years, we've stopped about 350 hydropower projects, most of them entirely, a lot through the involvement with scientists who created the data that the lawyers could use. That's really helpful, and yeah, that's the positive side. One thing, as you mentioned, the Sarantaporos, Nikos made it. It's a pristine or a pretty pristine river system. The Vjosa could be the same, but what is really missing on the Vjosa in comparison to the Sarantaporos is forests around the river. It's very deforested, and we've started a reforestation project. And this year we initiated the first plantings outside 9,000 willows, poplars, and maple trees have been planted in the Tepelena region and will go on. So this is a different type of science, I would say, because we are doing really pioneering work. It seems that in Albania, the knowledge to really reforest something is completely gone after 2,500 years of shepherd culture. So you can't buy willows, you can't buy poplars. All you can buy is Australian eucalyptus, Canada poplars, or olive trees, basically. So that's the thing. We have a tree nursery, so there is more to come. One thing, you know, the Science Week, the Neretva Science Week can be successful. I think we will win the upper part from Ulok. There will be no dams, but the Ulok hydropower plants, it seems that it's now in full operational mode, which is really scheiße, but it's kind of unstoppable. And we are trying to find out how we can mitigate the impact downstream. On the other basin, that is a hotspot in the Balkans, beside Neretva Basin, is the Drina Basin. Last webinar, there was Kurt Pinter from the Boku University gave a presentation about the Huchun population in the Drina Basin. We are collecting the data there in order to find hydropower projects in that basin, especially in the Drina and in the tributaries where these species spawn. And just to give you an insight, I just received today information from Pippa from Bankwatch, because there is a big dam plant in the Drina on Bosnian side, the Republika Srpska. It's Buk Biela. That project is there for years. And they need to redo the EIA because for certain reasons. And there was somebody, a mammal person that we know, was contacted by the Republika Srpska and to assess bats. They gave her basically 1 or 2 days to assess the bats only. And she said, no, I need at least 1 or 2 months to assess the bats in the summer. And they refused. They say, no, we know there is no impact and it's just for the paper. So that is still the atmosphere, it's the surrounding we are dealing with in this 21st century in that region. Highly valuable river on the one hand, and the legal part is clear. They need to do an EIA, but the way they do it has nothing to do with the sense. So this might be the next bigger battle on the Drina, to assess the data, to give it to the lawyers to fight this nonsense, really. That is basically from my side. The next Science Week, we need to discuss that, will be chosen pretty soon. So give all of you the chance to plan ahead of time. I very much hope that we have a Science Week 26, We couldn't have one for certain reasons. There was financing reasons. There was capacity reasons why we did not do a Science Week in 2025. But 26, there will be another one, I hope. Thanks a lot.
So, thank you, Lee, and thank you for giving us the bigger picture. One can see that there's still a lot at stake in the Blue Heart, and there are many more rivers in need of dedicated people and scientists. And for now, I think it's a good moment to thank our audience who has followed us till here. It's a pleasure to have you. And if you have any specific questions concerning the campaign or... Yes, Ulrich?
Sorry, no, to be here because I just wanted to say, following a little bit what Gabriel said, I forgot to mention that, about this, the role of scientists inspiring. I really think we should have, in the end, that's my dream, to have in all large intact river basins, something like, I don't know the proper word, scientist ambassadors, scientists who take care of large river systems, for example, like you in the Aos basin with the Sarantaporos, or in the Neretva, there's also some. We need these guardians, in a way, from the scientific perspective. And I also dream a little bit about that we have at least in every country, a river research center, as we do have in the Vjosa Basin, where people can come together, like, a key structure where we can meet, where we can be visible. And why not having it in the Una and the Moracha, maybe in the Drina Basin also? We need more people like you, or you and others, and come together, because this is a fight. We can win so much still. We can still win so much. If we've lost it, then it's gone. But still in the Balkans, there's a lot there. So that is a bit my personal vision I just wanted to share with you. We came a long way, but there's so much potential also to inspire students, not even with presentation, but with feeling. Go out there and get that feeling and get the adventure and be part of it. That's really, I'm looking forward. I'm really, that would be a dream come true. Sorry for interrupting, Manu, but that I wanted to, yeah.
So we had a question from Marta, but I think it's already answered. Yes. Thank you, Luis, for that. Yeah, and with all this call to action, and no, we have another question coming in. No, yes. Wait a second. Oh, Professor Singer, that would be for you then.
There is a question for me.
It's Marta again. For everyone else who stayed with us, I thank you for your time, and I hope if you have specific questions to rivers or how you can act for the rivers, please get back to us after the webinar. Thomas, I think we are over our time already. I'm sorry for the results section of the butterflies. And with that, if one of the panelists would like to add something.
I could add something about protected areas in Greece. We did the research within a master thesis in 2022. We did research on the installations of hydros and wind parks, and we found out that 36% of hydros and 28% of wind parks are located in Natura areas in Greece. Also, many areas that are agricultural areas are covered with photovoltaics, and also they are planned all over the Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea, near shore wind farms, without any formal spatial planning. this is becoming a pest with alternative energy. This is a great problem not only for hydropower plants.
Thank you, Nikos. So, Uri, I see you're still answering one of the questions. Is this right?
Me? No.
Okay.
I'm just sitting here.
That's strange. Okay. So then, thank you all. I appreciate your time and being with us. And with that, I will close out.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. All the best to
Ciao, everybody.
For the organization.